Toph is one of the most badass female characters in not just Avatar, but in any media. She's the complete opposite of the damsel in distress and has one of the most expanded stories in the Avatar world. The only thing is, following her story is very hard, as it's spread throughout multiple TV shows, many graphic novels, and many comics. So in this video, I'm going to pull all of that information together and make the entire timeline of Toph's life, from her childhood to her marriage, her time as a mother, and finish it off with her time as an old woman. Before we start, I make new videos every week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on to make sure you never miss a Movie Flame video. Now let's get started. Toph was born to Lao and Poppy Beifong, two loving and very strict parents. The Beifong family was a very prestigious and wealthy family who had a lot of power and influence in the Earth Kingdom. Lao and Poppy were very distraught when their daughter was born blind, and because of this, they made Toph be very sheltered from the outside world, as they thought her to be fragile and incapable of looking after herself. They went to extreme measures to protect her, including hiding her existence from the rest of the world, which resulted in very few people knowing that the Beifong family even had a daughter. Lao and Poppy expected Toph to be well-mannered and proper due to their noble status in the Earth Kingdom society, something that Toph hated, but she kept this to herself, leading her to resent her parents. If Toph asked why she had to do certain things, her parents would tell her over and over again, because that was how it was done, whether it be respecting the dead, wearing dresses, or working on table manners. Toph would constantly see kids playing outside, and even though she would beg her father to play with them, he always said no. One day Toph told her father, with tears in her eyes, that she was lonely being locked up in the house, and after apologizing to his daughter, Lao gave her the same answer he always gave her. This was how it was done. One day when Toph was 6, she had had enough of her parents that day, so she ran away. She found herself in a cave inhabited by badger moles, blind creatures that were the very first earthbenders. Toph found comfort in these creatures like she never had with anything or anyone else before. She said that she and the creatures understood each other, especially because they were both blind. She would continue to visit these creatures throughout her childhood. They were her escape, and eventually they became her earthbending teachers. She learned by imitating their movements, and they taught her how to see using earthbending, seeing people and things through the vibrations in the earth with her feet. She also learned to feel somebody's heartbeat, and by feeling it, she could tell if a person was lying or not. Over the next 6 years, the badger moles were Toph's only friends, and by the time she was 12, she had never had a true human friend. Lao hired an earthbending teacher named Master Yu to instruct Toph, and not knowing that Toph was one of, if not the best earthbender ever, her father told Master Yu to only teach her the basics. Toph became tired of being holed up at home, and using the advantage of no one knowing that she existed, courtesy of her parents hiding her from the world, she entered underground earthbending tournaments under the name the Blind Bandit, and she was successful to the point where she became the champion, beating many formidable opponents, including the Boulder. After beating the Boulder, however, she faced Aang, and she could not sense his vibrations because he was so light on his feet, thus creating the nickname that Toph gave Aang, Twinkle Toes. Aang ended up giving Toph her first loss when he used airbending, and she was so mad that she left before Aang got a chance to talk to her. Aang, Sokka, and Katara later came to the Beifong home, and they asked Toph if she could teach Aang earthbending, but she refused. Hours later, however, the three of them went to Toph's parents instead, and Toph worked hard to keep them from exposing her true side to her parents. But it came out anyway when the earthbenders that she had beaten in the tournament captured her and Aang. Toph showed her true colors to save Aang, and she beat all 7 of her kidnappers without breaking a sweat. Before they were kidnapped, Aang offered her the chance to travel with them, something that she took interest in right away, as a chance to finally be free from who she really was, and to finally, for the first time in her 12 years of life, have friends. But now that her parents had seen her true colors, they refused to let her go, thinking that because she had gone behind their back to fight, they had given her too much freedom. Lao told Toph that she would be cared for and guarded 24 hours a day. Toph refused to listen to this, however, and she joined Team Avatar, and though she ran away, she told her new friends that her parents had let her go. Lao and Poppy, thinking that the Avatar had kidnapped Toph, they hired Master Yu and Xin Fu to bring their daughter back. After joining the team, Toph taught Aang earthbending, and though she was harsh with them at first, she realized that Aang needed a more gentle teacher. There's one story that wasn't in the show, but rather in the tie-in comics, where Toph tried to teach Aang how to hear the earth. However, Sokka kept making a huge racket, and Toph got so mad that she sent Sokka up in the air, and even after she had finished her lesson with Aang and day had turned to night, she left Sokka up there. Another time, Katara and the others tried to get Toph to clean the dirt off herself and her clothes, but Toph told them that it wasn't dirt, but a protective layer, saying it was an earthbending thing, and the others would not understand. Having enough of Toph's dirtiness and smelliness, however, Katara tried to force Toph into the water, but Toph bended a rock in front of her to stop her. In retaliation, Katara forced Toph into the water, but after Toph said she couldn't swim, Katara bended the water away, forcing them all to fall into the wet mud, and to Toph's delight, this made all of the others just as dirty as her. Along their journey, Toph helped fight off Zuko, Azula, Mei, and Ty Lee, all of whom were after Aang. She also had some disagreements with Katara, which one day made Toph leave the group. While gone, she ran into Iroh, who gave her advice that made her realize that she had to rejoin her friends. One day, the team spent the day fighting for fun, and Toph made a hand catch and throw Aang. She got Katara stuck in quicksand using Katara's own waterbending against her, and made Sokka trip over a pebble. Eventually, after all of them were defeated, they gave up, declaring Toph the winner. The team eventually made their way to a library in the desert, and there they discovered the Day of the Black Sun, a stored way to stop the Fire Nation. While her friends were in the library, however, it began to sink, and Toph had to hold it up to ensure they weren't buried forever. But while she did this, Appa was kidnapped, and Toph knew that there was nothing she could do. As they got away with Appa, Toph began to cry, feeling as though she had let the bison down. Learning that Appa was taken to Ba Sing Se, the team headed there, and before entering the city, Toph and the others fought off Azula's attempts to enter the impenetrable city by disabling her drill. The team wanted to tell the Earth King about the Day of the Black Sun to ensure their victory in the war, but they discovered how corrupt the city was, being run by Long Fang and his Dai Li agents, who told them that they could not see the Earth King for a month. While they were waiting to see the Earth King, they stayed in the city, and Toph and Katara went on a girls' day out. After getting a makeover, Toph was called a clown by a group of girls, which lowered her self-esteem a great deal, but she got them back by using earthbending. Despite that, she was still hurt, and she told Katara that being blind made her not worry about appearances, and said that she wasn't looking for anyone's approval. She knew who she was, and she was happy with it, something that Katara said that she admired in her, and Katara told Toph that she was really pretty, something that restored Toph's confidence, and after that, she appreciated her friendship with Katara far more. The team eventually ran into Jet, and after Toph felt his heartbeat and realized that he wasn't lying, Jet made them discover Lake Laogai, a place where Long Fang and his Dai Li agents brainwashed people, and where they thought they could be holding Appa. When they went down there, they fought Long Fang and the Dai Li, leading to Jet getting seriously injured. As they left, Jet told Katara that he would be alright, but Toph felt his heartbeat and knew he was lying, now knowing that moments later, he would die. When the team was chased out by the Dai Li and Long Fang, Appa came to their rescue, and Toph and the others were so happy to see him. When the team finally met with the Earth King, they learned that he did not even know about the 100-year war, and after informing him about everything and telling him about the Day of the Black Sun, Team Avatar split up to go on different missions. Toph got a letter from who she thought was her mom, who was saying that she was in the city, but when she went to meet her, she realized it wasn't her mother, but the Earthbenders that her father had hired to get her back from the Avatar. The two Earthbenders would later regret this, however, as Toph showed her true power and became the world's first Metalbender, breaking out of the confines her kidnappers had put her in, and she escaped, claiming correctly that she was the greatest earthbender in the world. She headed back to Ba Sing Se, but when she and the rest of the team returned to the city, they discovered that Azula, Mei, and Ty Lee had taken the city over. Toph was reunited with Iroh, and together they teamed up and fought Azula and the Dai Li. The fight went very badly, and they owed Iroh their lives as he held them off while they escaped. And the worst part was, Aang was hurt badly and didn't wake up for weeks. While Aang was asleep, the team took over Fire Nation ships, and they headed to the Fire Nation. To the delight of everyone, Aang eventually woke up, and they informed him on what was happening. While in the Fire Nation, Toph and Katara again got into some disagreements, as Toph was hustling to get money, something that Katara did not agree with. When wanted posters of Toph went up, Katara angrily confronted her, and Toph hit a weak spot, saying that Katara wasn't her or the other's mom, but the two later apologized and worked it out. This fight made Toph realize that she wanted to send a letter to her parents, who she hadn't seen or talked to since she ran away, and she asked Katara to help her write it, which Katara of course agreed to do. When it came time for the Day of the Black Sun and the Firebenders lost their ability to bend, they invaded the Fire Nation, Toph entering as an earthbending soldier. After finding out that the Fire Lord was not there, Toph and Sokka escorted Aang to an underground vault where they thought the Fire Lord was hiding, but when they got there, they realized it was a trap, and they were met by Azula instead. Eventually it became clear that they had lost the battle, and the kids escaped, while the adults on the team were captured. They went to the Western Air Temple, and there they were visited by Zuko, who wanted to train Aang to firebend. They turned him away, however, something that Toph angrily disagreed with. She left the group and went out to find Zuko, but when she startled him, he burned Toph's feet, the thing that allowed her to see. Toph crawled back to the others with a lot of struggle, and she agreed that Zuko was no good. Right after Toph returned, however, they were attacked, and Zuko saved them, finally proving himself to Toph and the team. The team prepared for Sozin's Comet, an event that would give the Fire Lord enough strength to finish the war. Toph, Aang's earthbending teacher, along with with Zuko and Katara, his waterbending and firebending teachers pushed him so hard and put so much pressure on him that Aang ran away. While looking for Aang, the rest of the team ended up at the Order of the White Lotus's camp, and while there, Toph heard Suki say that Bumi was the greatest earthbender of all time. This led Toph and Bumi to have an earthbending rumble to find out who was really the best. The two fought so hard that it caused the others to think that they were under attack. When they got there, they tried to stop them, but they were unable to hear them, so instead they stopped it bending style. After stopping it, the fight ended in a draw, but the two decided to a rematch, though the rematch never took place. The team got serious again, and they focused on Sozin's comment. Toph, Sokka, and Suki decided that even if Aang was gone, they had to stop the Fire Nation air fleet, and Toph added that this way, when Aang did show up to face the Fire Lord, they'd be right there if he needed them. Together, Toph, Sokka, and Suki took down a bunch of airships, and ultimately, this helped Team Avatar win the war once and for all. Shortly after the 100-Year War, Toph ran into the Boulder, the earthbender she fought before meeting Aang and the others. She helped the Boulder take care of his pet, the Pebble, and eventually they realized that the Pebble was pregnant. The Boulder made Toph swear not to tell anyone, and she agreed, but during the rematch fight, the Boulder told everyone anyway, much to Toph's exasperation. Toph then finished him off with one swift move. One day, Toph found Ty Lee upset, and to cheer her up, she took Ty Lee to a circus. The circus, however, happened to feature Ty Lee's 6 twins, and Ty Lee, resentful toward them for stealing her act, stormed out angrily. Toph convinced her to stay, however, and Ty Lee opened up to Toph, and ultimately, Toph taking Ty Lee to the circus made her feel better, even if it wasn't in the way that Toph had expected. About a year after the final battle during Sozin's Comet, Toph decided that she wanted to share her gift of metal bending with other earthbenders, and she opened her own metal bending school, which she named Beifong's Metalbending Academy. This idea came to fruition when every once in a while, her space metal bracelet would move the tiniest bit, and she eventually realized that this happened when someone around her got super emotional. So, she had the idea that maybe these people that could move her bracelet could also be metal benders, and this was how she recruited 3 students, Tun, Panga, and the Dark One. The school overlooked Yu Dao, a Fire Nation colony on Earth Kingdom land, and her students noticed a lot of ruckus down there. When Toph went to look for herself, she saw Appa. She told her students to stay put and to practice, and that she would be back soon. She earthbended up to Appa and reunited with their friends for the first time in months. The reunited Team Avatar went down to see what was going on in Yu Dao, and Toph found out that Zuko was pulling his support to get rid of the Fire Nation colonies in the Earth Kingdom, colonies like Yu Dao. When she returned to her school, Sokka came with her. When they got there, however, Toph was informed by her students that they had been kicked out by a firebending dojo master and his students. Toph confronted the master and the two were about to fight, but Sokka broke it up before they did, and instead, they decided to have the students from each school fight for the building. This was tough though, because so far, none of Toph's students had metal bended before. Sokka helped Toph train them as best they could, but it was no use. Toph gave up, and when it came time for the fight, she told the fire master that he could have the school, but much to her surprise, her students showed up ready to fight and were able to metal bend. Toph's students destroyed the other school in the fight, winning the school back. After Tun told Toph that she was the first person to believe in him, Toph shed a tear, but she wiped it away before turning around and whipping them into shape. Shortly after that, Suki arrived, and she recruited Toph and Sokka to help, now that the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation were waging war over Yu Dao. The 3 realized that it was up to them to stop an army, and when Sokka questioned this, Suki said that the 3 of them had stopped the air fleet during Sozin's Comet, so they should be able to do this. Toph earthbended a slide that took them right under Zuko's army. Toph took out a whole fleet of tanks in one swift move, but it was too late. The 2 armies had met and began to fight. Toph and the others tried to stop both armies, and Toph fought side by side with Suki. Here, Toph got out of breath and had to stop, something that I think is very out of character, but whatever. When it looked like it was the end for the 2 of them, Toph's metal bending students stepped in and saved them. Suki, Toph, and her students then fought together with great success. The fight finally came to a close when Aang stepped in, ensuring the safety of Yu Dao and the soldiers on both sides. Toph went back to her school, and she expanded a great deal. It got so big that she had to put tents outside to house all of her students. She wanted to expand the building, but she didn't have the money to do that yet. One day, Toph went with Aang, his air acolytes, and the rest of Team Avatar to celebrate an Air Nation holiday, Yang Chen's festival. While there, Aang told everyone to bow to a statue, which was part of the celebration, and finished his sentence saying, "That's how it's done." The same thing that Toph's parents always said to her, bringing back painful memories. Because of this, Toph got angry and refused to participate, much to Aang's disappointment. Eventually, the group went to the meadow where the festival took place, only to find that it was taken over by an industrial factory. When they went to the factory, they met Satoru, the engineer of the place, who was a big fan of Team Avatar, especially Toph, who he praised for her discovery of metal bending. He then offered to give Toph a tour of the factory. Toph and Satoru hit it off, and in exchange for Toph and her students to help in the factory, Satoru offered to sponsor a new building for her school. It was clear that this agreement was more than just a partnership, however, something that Sokka and Katara noticed immediately. A little while later, Satoru's uncle and his business partner arrived, and to Toph's horror, his partner was her father, Lao Beifong. Lao, however, did not claim her and said that Toph was not his daughter, something that really hurt Toph. When Toph tried to talk to him, Lao did not give her the time of day and walked off. Toph burst into the factory, and when she came face to face with her father, Lao told her that he spent many hours and a lot of his fortune to raise a well-mannered daughter, and that the girl that stood before him was not the girl he had raised, something that made Toph say that she knew she put him through a lot, but he had no right to talk to her like that. She told him that she was proud of who she was and what she had accomplished. And she hoped that he would accept her for who she was, but all he did was turn her back on her. Toph walked away crying, saying that she knew coming to talk to him was a mistake. Later on, however, Toph and her father, along with many others, were trapped underground as the mine they were in collapsed. Toph held it up, but it took all of her strength. She held it up for hours, and as she was holding it up, Lao came to talk to his daughter. He told her that after Toph left, Toph's mother Poppy left him and blamed him for Toph running away. Realizing that this might be his last chance, as tears rolled down his face, he told Toph that he loved her and that he was sorry for everything. Toph then said that he didn't have to worry, because if he knew the real Toph, he would know that she could hold this up for as long as she needed to, because she was the greatest earthbender in the world. Toph's students then came to the rescue and metal-bended everybody out. Toph, however, passed out from exhaustion and was caught by her father. When a giant spirit began to attack, however, Toph realized that she had to fight, but Lao did not want her to, still trying to keep her sheltered and safe. But then he realized that this was who his daughter was, and he finally accepted her. Toph and her metal-bending students helped Aang fight the spirit off, and eventually they won. Afterwards, Toph and Aang had a nice moment where Toph apologized for spitting on Aang's air nomad holiday, and the two hugged it out. Toph and Satoru worked on their sponsorship together, and they made a deal to help expand Toph's metalbending school and also help the factory. Toph's partnership with Satoru and her father grew, and she eventually grew out of being a factory representative, but rather an executive partner. Over the course of the next year, the few shops that were around the factory turned into an entire city that was named Cranefish Town. As executive partner, Toph had one job where she was overseeing the South Pole transformation, the Southern Water Tribe borrowing their factory supplies to grow their tribe, and when she arrived, she got the pleasant surprise to find Katara and Sokka there. Later on, however, she learned that the people in charge, Melina and Malik of the Northern Water Tribe, were planning on taking advantage of the Southern Water Tribe by stealing their resources and keeping them for themselves. This caused a war, Southern Water Tribe rebels fighting back, and Toph and Team Avatar ended up protecting Melina and Malik despite what they had done. They successfully held the Southern rebels off. Toph's students came to the Southern Water Tribe and helped with the construction. When the Earth King and Zuko arrived for negotiations, another fight broke out against the Southern rebels, and this time, Toph used her space metal bracelet as a weapon. However, even though it seemed like they won, the rebels kidnapped the Earth King. To get him back, they had to trade Sokka and Katara's father, but they had a plan. Toph's students helped Sokka metal bend armor so that when they were chi blocked, taking their bending away, it did not work. However, when the Earth King and Sokka and Katara's father were on a bridge, it fell. Toph tried to hold it up, but was struggling, something that I again feel was very out of character, especially after she held the fallen mine for hours, but again, whatever. The team eventually saved everyone except the leader of the rebels, who fell to his death. Team Avatar left the Southern Water Tribe and were headed to Yu Dao, but before going, Toph asked to stop at her father's factory, and the rest of Team Avatar saw the new city of Cranefish Town for the first time. While there, Toph's father Lao showed Team Avatar how messed up the city was, as there was a divide between benders and non-benders. To solve this, the idea of a police force was put into place. That night, Toph heard some noises in the factory and she went to check it out, but when she got there, she could feel through vibrations in the earth that one of the machines had been jammed, and it caused a huge explosion, destroying the factory. Luckily, Toph was able to metal bend to save herself. She then felt the culprits running, and she and Aang went after them, but unfortunately, they got away. They later found out that other factories in the city had been destroyed as well, and all of them were owned by non-benders. The team decided to visit Liling, a woman who seemed to be a generous citizen, but while there, her daughters Yaling and Ru came out, and Toph recognized their footsteps as the culprits who got away the previous night. Discovering that Toph could metal bend, Yaling asked Toph to teach her, and when she had a lesson with her, Yaling played right into Toph's hand, as Toph manipulated her and got the password to a secret meeting her mother Liling was holding. Toph accompanied Yaoling, and they were tailed by a disguised Team Avatar. And while there, Toph revealed her hand and got into a fight with Yaoling, and it was an all-out brawl. A huge fight broke out when Team Avatar revealed themselves as well, and Liling sacrificed herself to let everyone else escape. When they had Liling locked up, Toph suggested to Aang to take her bending away like he did to Fire Lord Ozai to end the war, and everyone was shocked at this, especially Katara, and she and Toph got into a big argument, but Aang eventually made them drop it. Later on, the Business Council Center came under attack, and Toph, learning that her father was in there, hurried to his and the rest of the Business Council's rescue, but the team later realized that this was a distraction so that Liling's daughters could free her. That night, Liling's non-bending daughter Rue came to warn Team Avatar of her mother's attack on the factory the next morning, and because of the warning, Toph and Team Avatar were ready. During the attack, Toph and Yaoling had a rematch, and Yaoling turned out to be the most equally matched opponent Toph had ever faced. I personally hate how this fight ended, as Toph ended up losing and had to be saved by Sokka, who knocked Yaoling out with his boomerang. If she can hold her own with Boomy, she should be able to beat this little girl with ease. But again, whatever. During the fight, Toph swung down on a metal line, something that she noted could be useful. Suki and the Kyoshi warriors helped train a non-bending police force for the city, but Aang knew that they needed bending cops as well, but he said that they had to be trustworthy. Team Avatar stayed in Cranefish Town for a while, and eventually after many years, they made it Republic City, a place where all benders and non-benders could live together in harmony. Aang eventually found a bender who could help fight crime in the city alongside the non-bending cops, and it turned out to be one of his best friends, Toph. Toph revolutionized the police force, becoming the chief of police, and many of her metal bending students became cops for the city. She utilized the metal lines she had discovered during her fight against Yaoling, and made them a huge part of the police force. She trained many people to become expert metal benders, and to ensure that she had the best task force to keep the city that was now in her hands safe. She was honored by having a giant statue of herself outside of the police station that would stay up for all of time. Toph eventually went on to meet a man named Kanto, and the two had a romantic relationship, and later they had a daughter named Lin. Unfortunately, the relationship with Kanto did not work out, and the two separated. Toph would later fall in love with another man, and she had another daughter named Suyin, or Su for short, and she was 6 years younger than her half-sister Lin. Toph ended up raising both of her daughters as a single parent, something that was not easy having such a high demanding job on top of that. Both daughters inherited her earthbending and became masters in their own right. Seeking to give them a different childhood than the one that she had, Toph gave her daughters the freedom that her parents never gave her, and she gave them the chance to find their own path. Though this led to her children resenting her for the complete opposite reason of why Toph resented her own parents, as by giving them space, she was never there for them. One of the most dangerous criminals that Toph faced as chief of police was a man named Yakone, a man who used the illegal ability of bloodbending. When Toph was about to arrest him, to her annoyance, Aang showed up, and after grudgingly agreeing to his help, Toph called Aang Twinkle Toes, something that Aang got annoyed with, saying that he was 40 years old, and asked her to stop with the nicknames, but Toph laughed and said no. The two then captured Yakone in a restaurant and took him in. During his trial, he was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison, but before he was taken away, Yakone bloodbended Toph and her police force, along with the rest of the people in the room, and tried to escape, but luckily Aang got to him first and took his bending away just like he did to Ozai. Toph became proud when her daughter Lin eventually joined the police force. One day, however, this led to Lin arresting her own sister Su for robbery. The two were brought to Toph's office, and she was furious, as they had put her in a very tough situation. Toph knew that the reporters would have a field day, the chief of police's own daughter going to jail. To fix this, she shredded Su's police record and sent Su away from the city, knowing that she could not stay there anymore, and she had her live with her grandparents, Lao and Poppy. 1 year after that, Toph retired from the police force, and Lin took over her position as chief of police. Toph had a very rocky relationship with her daughters, especially after that day where she sent Su away, but Toph eventually reconciled with Su, though Lin refused to participate in this. Su went on to marry a man named Patar, and she made a city called Zaofu made of all metal, something that made Toph very proud, and her daughter even honored her by having a statue of Toph in the center of the city. Toph visited Su from time to time, along with her grandchildren, Patar Jr., Huan, Opal, Wei, and Wing, though she always had a pit in her stomach because of her unresolved problems with Lin. Leaving the police force made Toph feel as though she did not have a purpose in life, so she traveled the world in search of enlightenment, and it seemed as though she dropped off the face of the earth. However, it was quite the opposite. She went to a swamp where she was more connected to the world than she had ever been. She could use the trees and the vines to see all, including her daughters and everything else that was going on around the world. However, she had no real human contact for years besides a few swamp benders, until one day she finally met an old friend, but in a different lifetime. She found Avatar Korra passed out in a swamp swamp, and she brought her to the cave that she was living in. When Korra realized who she was, Toph said it was nice to see her again, and called Korra Twinkle Toes. Toph helped Korra find out who she really was after she had been broken for the past year, and she made Korra discover that there was a small amount of poison metal inside of her. Toph instructed Korra as she metal bended the poison metal out of herself, curing her of her fear and weakness, and helping her blossom into the avatar that she was meant to be. Korra left after that, and Toph went back to her seclusion, but one day while seeing through the earth and the vines, she saw that her daughter Sue had been kidnapped. She returned to Zaofu, and she was reunited with Lin for the first time in 20 years, Lin also there to save Sue. Lin did not take kindly to her mother being there, however. All of Lin's feelings came to the surface, and she exploded at her mother, and she said that once they saved Sue, she and Toph were finished. This cut deep for Toph, and she said that if that's what would make Lin happy, then that's what they would do. But as she said this, Toph became choked up. Toph, Lin, Opal, and Bolin worked together to rescue Sue and her family, and they could not have done it without each other. Realizing that this was their chance to stop the giant weapon that Kuvira, an Earth Nation dictator, had made, the Beifongs minus Toph all teamed up, but they eventually got captured. When it looked like the end, Toph stepped in and showed her true power, saving all of her children and her grandchildren. Afterwards, Toph admitted to not being the best mother, but said that she ended up with 2 great kids. Lin and Toph finally made up after 20 years. Toph then returned to the swamp to get some peace and quiet, but she was always watching to make sure her kids and grandchildren were okay. A few months later, Korra went to visit Toph to convince her to run against a former dictator named Guan, who was trying to win in what looked like a fair and democratic way, though he was really brainwashing people to get them to vote for him. Toph was reluctant at first, but Korra used Toph's own words about the swamp against her, and Toph agreed, seeing that she might be the only one that stood a chance. Korra, Toph, and the Earth King Wu went back to get Asami, Mako, and Bolin, but they were met by Kuvira, who had now joined the good guys. However, at first, Korra did not believe Kuvira when she said that Asami, Mako, and Bolin had been brainwashed, but Toph sensed her heartbeat and told Korra that she was telling the truth. When told of the brainwashing, Toph remembered her time in Ba Sing Se when Longfang had brainwashed so many people, a memory that haunted her. They were then met by Sue, accompanied by 3 of her children. However, they were attacked by Guan, along with the brainwashed Asami, Mako, and Bolin. Toph, Sue, and Kuvira worked together to take down a big portion of the army, but Toph almost got hit and was narrowly saved by her daughter Sue. Realizing that they had lost, they retreated. As they escaped, Toph comforted her granddaughter Opal, who had been hit by her brainwashed boyfriend Bolin. For now, that's all we know about Toph's story, but once we get more information on her character and what happens next, I'll continue with her timeline in a separate video. Toph was a badass character, and she defied all odds, a young, blind, rich girl turning into the world's greatest earthbender and the creator of metal bending. Her character is so interesting, and she accomplished so much in her life, not only creating a new form of bending, but sharing that gift and making a school, becoming chief of police, and revolutionizing the way cops work in a brand new type of city that she helped create. And I would say that her legacy lived on in her kids, but hell, Toph is still out there kicking ass long after the rest of Team Avatar was. Toph is such a cool character, and breaking down her timeline only proves that even more. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life and see more of this little dude. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook for Movie Flame updates. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be featured in the next video, plus get a bunch of other rewards, become a patron today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great videos on the way.